This is the Foxpower Hybrid Solar Inverter Beta X6, the basic hybrid PV system. Beta X6 has 3 operating modes: grid tie with backup, grid tie and off-grid. It will list local grid standard. It's requested to have factory password to make any modifications. Allow AC charging duration. It's a period time to allow AC to charge battery. When the duration is set up as 000-000, it means no time limitation for AC to charge battery. AC output on-off timer, set up on-off time for AC output of inverter. If setting it as 000/000, this function is disabled. Allow to charge battery. This option is automatically determined by setting in charging source. It's not allowed to modify here. When none is selected in charging source section, this option becomes unchecked as gray text. Allow AC to charge battery. This option is automatically determined by setting in charging source. It's not allowed to modify here. When grid and PV, or grid or PV is selected in charging source section, this option is default selected. Under grid tie mode, this option is invalid. Allowed to feed into the grid, this option is only valid under grid tie and grid tie with backup modes. Users can decide if this inverter can feed into the grid. Allow battery to discharge when PV is available. This option is automatically determined by setting in load supply source. When battery is higher priority than grid and load supply source, this option is default selected. Under grid tie, this option is invalid. Allow battery to discharge when PV is unavailable. This option is automatically determined by setting in load supply source. When battery is higher priority than grid and load supply source, this option is default selected. Under grid tie mode, this option is invalid. Allow battery to feed into the grid when PV is available. This option is only valid in grid tie with backup 2 or grid tie with backup 3 modes. Allow battery to feed into the grid when PV is unavailable. This option is only valid in all options of grid tie with backup mode. LCD setting. After touching and holding up and down button for 2 seconds, the unit will enter setting mode. Press up or down button to select setting programs. And then, press Enter button to confirm the selection or ESC button to exit. Exit setting mode. The output voltage is 110 VAC, 120 VAC. The output frequency is 50 Hz, 60 Hz. Battery type. User-defined. If user-defined is selected, battery charge voltage and low DC cutoff voltage can be set up in program 4, 7, 8 and 9. Pylon check battery. If selected, programs of 4, 7, 8 and 9 will be automatically set up. No need for further setting. WECO battery. If selected, programs of 4, 7, 8 and 9 will be auto-configured per battery supplier recommended. No need for further adjustment. Soltaro battery. If selected, programs of 4, 7, 8 and 9 will be automatically set up. No need for further setting. LIB protocol compatible battery. Select LIB if using lithium battery compatible to LIB protocol. If selected, programs of 4, 7, 8 and 9 will be automatically set up. No need for further setting. Third-party lithium battery. If selected, programs of 4, 7, 8 and 9 will be automatically set up. No need for further setting. Please contact the battery supplier for installation procedure. VSC, if selected, standard CAN protocol will be supported. Maximum charging current. To configure total charging current for solar and utility chargers. 60A. Setting range is 1A, then from 10A to 120A. Increment of each click is 10A. Maximum utility charging current. 60A. Setting range is from 10A to 120A. Increment of each click is 10A. Maximum discharging current. 100A. Setting ranges from 10A to 150A. Increment of each click is 10A. Bulk charging voltage, default setting, 56.0V. Setting ranges from 48.0V to 60.0V. Increment of each click is 0.1V. Floating charging voltage, default setting, 54.0V. Setting ranges from 48.0V to 60.0V. Increment of each click is 0.1V. Low DC cutoff battery voltage setting when grid is available. Default setting, 42.0. Setting ranges from 40V to 60V. Increment of each click is 0.1V. Battery rate discharging voltage when grid is available. Default setting, 48.0. Setting ranges from 40V to 60V. Increment of each click is 0.1V. Low DC cutoff battery voltage when grid is unavailable. Default setting, 48.0. Setting ranges from 42V to 60V voltage. Increment of each click is 0.1V. Battery rate discharging voltage when grid is unavailable. Default setting, 54.0. Setting ranges from 42V to 60V voltage. Increment of each click is 0.1V. Operation mode. Grid time with backup. PV power can feed in back to grid, provide power to the load and charge battery. Off-grid. PV power only provides power to the load and charge battery. No feed-in back to grid is allowed. Grid tie. PV power only can feed in back to grid. PV energy supply priority setting. Grid tie with backup mode. Grid tie with backup I. Battery load grid. PV power will charge battery first, then provide power to the load. If there is any remaining power left, it will feed into the grid. Grid time with backup 2. Load battery grid. PV power will provide power to the load first. Then, it will charge battery. If there is any remaining power left, it will feed into the grid. Grid tie with backup 3. Load grid battery. PV power will provide power to the load first. If there is more PV power available, it will feed into the grid. If feed-in power reaches max feed-in power setting, the remaining power will charge battery. Grid tie with backup 4. If selected, it is only allowed to set up peak time and off-peak for electricity demand. Programs of 15, 17, 18, 19 and 20 can't be set and only programs of 21, 22, 23 and 24 can be set. Off-grid mode. Off-grid I. Load battery. PV power will provide power to the load first and then charge battery. Feed into the grid is not allowed under this mode. Off-grid 2. Battery load. PV power will charge battery first. After battery is fully charged, if there is remaining PV power left, it will provide power to the load. Feed into the grid is not allowed under this mode. At the same time, the grid relay is connected. Off-grid 3. Load battery. PV power will provide power to load first and then charge battery. Feed into the grid is not allowed under this mode. The grid relay is not connected. Grid time mode. PV power only feeds into the grid. No priority setting is available. Charger source priority, solar and utility. If there is remaining PV power after supporting the loads, it will charge battery first. Only until PV power is not available, grid will charge battery. Only solar, it is only allow PV power to charge battery. None, it is not allowed to charge battery no matter its PV power or grid. The feed to grid function is feed to grid disable, feed to grid enable. The battery energy feed to grid function when PV energy is available is battery feed to grid disable, battery feed to grid enable. The battery energy feed to grid function when PV energy is unavailable is battery feed to grid disable, feed to grid enable. Load supply source. Solar grid battery. PV power will provide power to the load first. If it's not sufficient, grid will provide power to the load. If grid is not available at the same time, battery power will back up. SBU, solar battery grid, PV power will provide power to the load first. If it's not sufficient, battery power will provide power to the load. When battery power is running out or not available, grid will back up the load. Load supply source. UB, grid battery, grid will provide power to the load at first. If grid is not available, battery power will provide power backup. BU, battery grid, battery power will provide power to the load at first. If battery power is running out, grid will back up the load. This setting is ineffective during AC charging. Start charging time for first duration of AC charge. The setting range of start charging time for AC charger is from 0000 to 2300. Increment of each click is 1 hour. Stop charging time for first duration of AC charge. The setting range of stop charging time for AC charger is from 0000 to 2300. Increment of each click is 1 hour. Start charging time for second duration of AC charge. The setting range of start charging time for AC charger is from 0000 to 2300. Increment of each click is 1 hour. Stop charging time for second duration of AC charge. The setting range of start charging time for AC charger is from 0000 to 2300. Increment of each click is 1 hour. Schedule time for AC output on. The setting range of AC output on is from 0000 to 2300. Increment of each click is 1 hour. Schedule time for AC output off. The setting range of AC output off is from 0000 to 2300. Increment of each click is 1 hour. The LCD off waiting time is LCD is always on. The LCD turns off after 30s. The LCD turns off after 60s. The LCD turns off after 300s. The LCD turns off after 600s. The alarm control is alarm on, alarm off. The alarm control at standby mode is alarm on in standby mode, alarm off in standby mode. The alarm control at battery mode is alarm on in battery mode, alarm off in battery mode. The activate lithium battery when the device is powered on is activate lithium battery enable, activate lithium battery disable. AC output mode, single. This inverter is used in single-phase application. Parallel. This inverter is operated in parallel system. The generator as AC source is disable. Enable. The wide AC input range is disable. Enable. The external court function is disable. Enable. The PV parallel is disable. Enable. The AC output coupling is disable. Enable. Time setting a year minute. For minute setting, the range is from 00 to 59. Time setting a euro hour. For hour setting, the range is from 00 to 23. Time setting a euro day. For day setting, the range is from 00 to 31. Time setting a euro month. For month setting, the range is from 01 to 12. Time setting a euro year. For year setting, the range is from 17 to 99. The LCD display information will be switched in turns by pressing up or down key. Real date 2020-08-18. Real time 10:08. PV energy generated this today equals 8 Wh. PV energy generated this month equals 8 kWh. PV energy generated this year equals 108 kWh. Total PV energy generation equals 108 kWh. Main CPU version 01.01. Secondary CPU version 01.01. Remote panel version 16.00. Warning code 08. Operation mode and display. Inverter mode with grid connected. This inverter is connected to grid and working with DC-I&V operation. PV power is sufficient to charge battery, provide power to loads, and then feed into the grid. PV power is sufficient to charge the battery first. However, remaining PV power is not sufficient to back up the load. Therefore, remaining PV power and the utility are supplying power to the connected load. PV power is generated, but not sufficient enough to charge battery by itself. PV power and the utility are charging battery at the same time. And the utility is also supplying power to the connected load. This inverter is disabled to generate power to the load via AC output. PV power is sufficient to charge battery first. Remaining PV power will feed in back to grid. This inverter is disabled to generate power to the load via AC output. PV power and utility are charging battery at the same time because of insufficient PV power. This inverter is disabled to generate power to the load via AC output. PV power is feeding power back to the grid. PV power is sufficient to provide power to loads and feed power back to the grid. PV power and utility are providing power to the connected loads because of insufficient PV power. This inverter is working with DC-I&V operation and not connecting to the grid. PV power is sufficient to charge battery and provide power to the connected loads. PV power is generated, but not sufficient to power loads by itself. PV power and battery are providing power to the connected loads at the same time. Only battery power is available to provide power to connected loads. Bypass mode. The inverter is working without DC-I&V operation and connecting to the loads. Only utility is charging battery and providing power to connected loads. Only utility is available to provide power to connected loads. Standby mode. The inverter is working without DC-I&V operation and load connected. This inverter is disabled on AC output or even AC power output is enabled, but an error occurs on AC output. Only PV power is sufficient to charge battery. This inverter is disabled to generate power to the loads via AC output. PV power is not detected or available at this moment. Only utility is available to charge battery. If PV, battery or utility icons are flashing, it means they are not within acceptable working range. If they are not displayed, it means they are not detected. When a warning situation occurs, icon will flash. Touch up or down to select displaying warning code. 01. Line voltage high loss, grid voltage is too high. 02. Line voltage low loss, grid voltage is too low. 03. Line frequency high loss, grid frequency is too high. 04. Line frequency low loss, grid frequency is too low. 05. Line voltage loss for long time, grid voltage is higher than 253 V. 06. Ground loss, ground wire is not detected. 07. Island detect, island operation is detected. 08. Line waveform loss, the waveform of grid is not suitable for inverter. 09. Line phase loss, the phase of grid is not in right sequence. 10. EPO detected, EPO is open. 11. Overload, load exceeds rating value. 12. Over temperature, the temperature is too high inside. 13. Battery voltage low, battery discharges to low alarm point. 14. Battery under voltage when grid is lost, battery discharges to shutdown point. 15. Battery open, battery is unconnected or too low. 16. Battery under voltage when grid is okay, battery stops discharging when the grid is okay. 17. Solar over voltage, PV voltage is too high. The above is a brief introduction of Foxpower Hybrid Solar Inverter Beta X6 application. If you have any questions about our products, please contact us.